pues estamos aquí en el pabellón verde hoy y hemos encontrado a 4 chicos muy jóvenes que nos van a hablar de qué está pasando en esta parte de la COP.
Bueno, pues yo soy Julia, soy una voluntaria en la COP y estoy aquí en la parte de las ODS, el Objetivo 2030, y como esto funciona es, primero tenemos un panel informativo ahí atrás y hacemos que la gente pues informe de lo que son las ODS y por qué son importantes. Y una vez se informan, se vienen aquí y yo les hago 2 preguntas. La primera es que ¿cuál de las ODS les afecta a ellos más y cuál ellos han notado que es más importante para ellos? Y qué es lo que están haciendo ellos en su vida actual o lo que quieren hacer en su vida futura para conseguir que el objetivo se cumpla, el objetivo que han elegido.
Vale, ¿y para ti cuál es?
Para mí, en estos momentos, yo diría que es el cambio climático.
Vale.
Pero porque yo pienso que al final es que no van a servir de nada al resto si no tenemos un planeta en el que vivir. Entonces me parece súper importante que ahora mismo ataquemos este tema. Entonces, en mi caso, yo no me considero que haga muchísimas cosas, pero sí que he reducido todo lo que puedo el consumo de plásticos. Solo voy a hacer la compra con bolsas reutilizables y sobre todo cuando voy a hacer la compra pues peso la verdura toda junta y le pego la pegatina en vez de meterlas todas en una bolsa. Compro el pan entero en vez de comprar el pan de molde ya envuelto y con un montón de cosas de esas. Y luego he reducido mi consumo de carne, por decir así, como carne 1 o 2 veces por semana como mucho.
Vale.
Y nada, y busco un poco que yo y otra gente, hasta que otra gente haga lo mismo para que esto, o sea, un pequeño impacto, si todo el mundo hacemos lo mismo, al final el impacto es enorme. Entonces,
muchas gracias, Julia.
Nada.
Hola, mi nombre es Francisco Gabler, bueno, yo vengo de Chile, soy de Chile. Bueno, lo que me movió a venir a la COP es trasladar un poco el movimiento social chileno hacia España y que se visibilice de manera global. En Chile hay un tema ecosocial importante que es una de las aristas importantes del movimiento social chileno. El viernes ya tenemos una marcha porque en Chile hay zonas de catástrofe ambiental. Es un país que tiene el agua privatizada, un recurso fundamental para toda la biodiversidad de las especies. Son cosas que son importantes, son relevantes y que el país anfitrión no muestre, no visibilice y que un poco no se transparente ese tema, lo encuentro fundamental. Y bueno, dentro de las acciones yo me he salido del mundo privado, ahora estoy en el mundo más de activismo social, ambiental, y también teniendo acciones como no voy a trabajar a distancias largas, dejar el vehículo de un lado, andar a pie, usar locomoción pública o usar bicicleta y muchas cosas más también, y llevar a la conciencia ambiental a la gente que me rodea en los lugares que viajo y veo. Eso.
Vale, gracias.
Bueno, mi nombre es Carlos Sánchez, yo tengo 20 años y vengo de México. Yo vine a la COP porque estoy de Erasmus aquí en Madrid, entonces vine especialmente a la COP, pero me encantó que se pueda cambiar la locación a este país porque fue una gran coincidencia. Yo desde pequeño he sido muy fanático sobre todo los temas medioambientales, entonces siempre me ha movido mucho porque en mi casa siempre nos hemos criado con una visión ya más ecológica, entonces yo contribuyo de cierta manera con acciones pequeñas como utilizar el transporte público. En mi casa tenemos un pequeño huerto donde sembramos nuestros propios vegetales y más acciones pequeñas como no utilizar plástico, utilizar utensilios de aluminio y cosas así para tratar de reducir pues el consumo de plástico y demás cosas que tanto dañan al planeta.
Claro, muchas gracias.
Bueno, yo soy Agata Bonet Jiménez, soy de España, en concreto de Madrid, y nada, he venido aquí pues como ciudadana que soy por cotillear un poco a ver cuáles son las ideas que van a salir de este COP25, porque como a cualquier ciudadano me preocupa mucho mi planeta. Entonces, bueno, pues he venido, estoy viendo cuáles son las nuevas ideas, estoy conociendo un montón de gente súper interesante.
Qué bien.
Y al final yo lo que creo que podemos hacer todos es esos pequeños cambios, lo que hemos estado hablando, dejar el coche, ir en bici, intentar reducir el uso de plásticos y esa es la idea. Al final, para un gran cambio todos tenemos que ir aportando un poquito. Yo, por ejemplo, pues eso, no cojo el coche, voy en transporte público, intento reutilizar al máximo todo.
Vale.
Y yo la idea, por ejemplo, que tengo es tener el mayor contacto con la tierra del que tenemos ahora. Si una cosa la puedo hacer y puedo hacerla hasta un nivel que tenga un mayor contacto con la tierra, ese es el nivel bueno. Si en vez de tener que coger una bolsa de plástico para llevar mis cosas del trabajo, como podéis ver, cojo una de tela que voy a poder usar muchísimas más veces, pues lo hago y ya está. y eso es al final la clave.
Vale.
Contactar con la tierra.
Muchas gracias. ¿Y cuáles son las pulseras que ganáis?
Acción por el clima y alianzas para lograr objetivos.
Vale.
Igualmente.
Bueno, yo he cambiado un poco. Igualdad de género y educación de calidad.
Vale. Muchas gracias, niños. Que aprovecháis.
Egypt, Bolivia, and much more. We invite and encourage the parties to receive the outcomes from their own local points and implement their suggestions and our demands. We invite all the parties, observers, and youth and authorities to read COI outcomes and take action based on what the youth is asking you to do today. Thank you.
Your applauses. And actually today we'll have a lot of different little surprises, and one of surprises is video by Conference of Youth COP25. Let's see it.
Your applause, it was really great job during these days.
Thanks very much again. My team will carry on the outcome from COI, and also thanks again for the contribution to the global youth climate movement. And now I'm so honored to introduce you today's our keynote speaker. And she has been working on the ground in Sri Lanka as a young leader to mobilize the youth movement there for many years. And now she's the youngest senior officials in UN. And a few months ago, in September, during the UN General Assembly, she made the first ever UN Climate Youth Summit happen. Hundreds of young leaders from globe attend the UN Climate Action Summit and then to push forward climate action. So today, we are so lucky and honored to have the UN Secretary General's Youth Envoy, Jasma, with us. And you have the floor to have your inspirational keynote speech. Jasma.
Thank you very much. Hello everyone, good afternoon. Can you hear me? This is better. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you also to Spain, Chile, UNFCCC and UNGO for the very kind invitation to attend this dialogue and share some of my perspectives. But Alex mentioned delivering an inspirational keynote speech, but I just left my speech inside my folder and thought I would rather speak candidly about some of the conversations that I've heard since this morning, and also some of the questions that some of you have come up to me and asked, particularly related to the follow-up of the Youth Climate Summit we hosted this September in New York. My boss, the Secretary General, has spoken to you at the closing of the COI, So I'm not going to repeat what he said, but I just want to reaffirm one of the things he said, that is that we admire your work, and we also want to support your work. And in order to support that, one of the things that the Secretary General did last year was to convene a dedicated summit for young people prior to the Head of State Summit that he convened in September in New York. And for the first time in the UN headquarters, we had the largest gathering of young people. More than 1,000 young people from around the world came to New York to not just to connect with each other, connect across the continents, across the movements, and across different initiatives that they're leading on different parts of the world, but also to really speak truth to power in front of the world leaders. And this was a very special occasion for the UN, because we are usually very good at organizing events and asking young people to find ways to figure out how to be there. But this was the first summit that we actually got to dedicate resources to actually support young people's participation at the summit and capacity building. So it was, I think, one of the turning points for us to keep continuing to do this work, to bring the most marginalized and most vulnerable voices of young people to the important policy discussions that we have at the UN. So since the summit, there are a couple of updates that I would like to update you about. The first thing is that Ireland and Marshall Islands, as the co-leading governments of the Youth and Public Mobilization track for the summit, launched a pledge called Congesh. The pledge basically asked member states to involve young people in meaningful ways when they're working on national level and local level policy formulation on that relates to climate change. Currently we have more than 50 governments who have signed up to this, and this really is not something new. It is deeply rooted in the Paris Agreement that it is actually the responsibility of the duty bearers to consult and include young people and future generations in decision-making processes when it, as it applies to the future of the planet. So this is a reaffirmation of that commitment and of the Paris Agreement. And I would really encourage you to also, when you go back home, to encourage your governments and your leaders to also sign up for the pledge, and also for those countries who have already signed up for the pledge, for you to use it as a tool to hold your governments and your ministers and your leaders accountable to actually deliver on the commitment that they made in New York. We've also seen some really, I think, good examples. For example, Italy being the first country to integrate climate education as mandatory in the school curriculums. In Ireland, the parliament was actually taken over by young people on a climate debate, and the concrete recommendations that came from that debate is now being debated at the cabinet to see which exact recommendations can be integrated into Irish national policy on climate change. And of course, the climate education course, the free climate education course announced by the NOAA Academy at the Youth Climate Summit is now open for any young person anywhere to sign up online and follow the course. In addition to that, the Secretary General has also asked us to follow up on the recommendations that young people gave to us at the Climate Summit, to see what, as the United Nations, as a secretariat, we can do to follow up and support. So some of the key things that came out of the summit was that even though we see mass mobilizations of millions of young people around the world on the streets protesting and demanding governments for action, it's also not possible in some countries for young people to protest and go to the streets and demand for action, because sometimes it's seen not safe to do that, or sometimes even in some countries protesting is illegal. Some of the other key asks from young people were the availability of more tools, more resources, more knowledge, more funding and more opportunities to be involved in climate action. So in response to this, I'm very happy to announce that today we will be launching a platform called Reach Not Preach. This platform was developed by young people who participated in the Climate Summit itself. So it was shaped by young people, made by young people, for young people. And we also have in the room some of the young people who contributed to the development of this platform. This platform is a safe space. It's a community of practice for young people working on climate action, you can sign up as a community member and engage in a safe space in discussion, in voicing out your unfiltered opinions about climate policies either in your countries or at the international level. And it's also a one-stop shop for different tools, resources and opportunities available both within and outside of the United Nations that you can probably easily access through this portal. So I encourage and invite all of you to use that as a resource in amplifying the work that you are doing around the world. I also especially hope, in the context of the conversation today, that this platform can be a safe space for intergenerational dialogue. One of the biggest challenges for me in organizing the Youth Climate Summit this September was the very severe polarization when it comes to opinions and viewpoints and strategies in addressing climate change. Sometimes I found it very difficult to bring young people who are working on this issue and policymakers even to the same room because they simply didn't agree to talk to each other. But I think this is not a problem that we can solve by simply being different or simply not talking to each other and being extreme on our way. So I really want this platform to be a space where young people, policymakers, and basically everyone from every walk of life can come and have positive and constructive conversations about climate change and about climate action and our approach to solving this issue. I think it will also be a good opportunity to challenge the notion that intergeneration or the generations operate as binary. And this is something that I really like to stress when I talk to young people. I don't think we should solely take intergenerational dialogue as it's between young and the old. I believe that there are so many cross-sections, both vertically and horizontally, that affect intergenerational dialogue. For an example, I'm a 29-year-old. I still fall in the definition of young, but my 19-year-old sister and I have very different points of view and different strategies when it comes to addressing issues, particularly very critical issues like climate action, for an example. So I think even within our own generation, there are so many differences that we need to be careful and sensitive about, but also to be accountable to the constituency that we represent, that we do not dominate only by the views of the older cohort of young people, but we actually also let the younger cohort of young people take up these spaces and express their points of view, which could be different actually from our standpoints. And the second point is that I think there's also sort of vertical cross-sectionalities when we talk about generation, even within our own generation. When it comes to the realities of young people who are, say, living in rural areas, or young indigenous people, or young people living with disabilities, young LGBTIQ young people face really different realities when it comes to impacts of climate change. So even within our own generation, I think we have to be very conscious and sensitive about all of us having our own lived expertise and lived reality, and that we actually don't try to be the voice of the voiceless, but rather actually bring those who are voiceless into the decision-making tables and into conversations like this in order to have a more inclusive conversation on climate change, but also to make sure that the processes that inform policies and programs are as inclusive as our communities are. And lastly, next year is also a really important year for the United Nations because we are celebrating our 75th anniversary. The UN is becoming a 75-year-old institution, but we desperately want to become young. We want to become more relevant to young people, and we want to be your allies and your supporters in trying to resolve these issues that you care about. We also live in a time that multilateralism, institutions like the UN are under proactive attack by member states sometimes and by different groups. So we also count on your support to strengthen the multilateral system, strengthen the work that we do, strengthen the mandate that the governments have given us in order to be able to solve some of the biggest issues that goes beyond boundaries that are transnational, such as climate change. So thank you very much, and I look forward to this discussion.
Partnership this year, putting up all the events leading up to this one, and also the community this year for collaboration also at this year, leading up to several finance related processes. And of course, as young members, but of course on our mailing list over 7,000. But way more than that, we still want to have that consolidated. We've been actively working to make sure that the Paris Agreement is at least being implemented by member states. It's a lot of work, a lot of hiccups, a lot of challenges with negotiations. Of course, more often than not, we are observers and sessions, and of course now we are increasingly becoming negotiators with some member states who are doing really well in improving the delegates as part of their delegation, official delegation. And also here we are organized according to thematic working groups. So we have about 28 of them, different areas, adaptation, mitigation, and a whole bunch of processes. One of the work that these working groups do was presented earlier today by the policy leaders, and then what was presented according to those working groups. And we are building on that also in the negotiations here at COP to see how to influence decisions and how to talk to member states at national level, how to mainstream global processes at the very local level where the actions are needed. So it's a lot of work to mobilize, to make awareness, but also to be part of decision making and to implement concrete solutions on the ground. I will hand it over to my colleague Serena to say about the organization.
Hello. Thank you for that introduction. So, kind of Youngo, talk about it more in a nutshell. Kind of covered most of it, sort of the things. Okay, so in a nutshell, basically, we work online and offline sort of throughout the year. I guess you could say most of it is done online because we come to the UNFCCC sessions, and then we also do wider UN. So Youngo was in New York in September, and then so we come to the COPs, SBs, and then sort of smaller meetings in between. What happened over the last few months? There's been an ACE symposium, loss of damage meetings, things like that. And then, so while we're here on ground at COPs, this is sort of the time when it's the most intense, really, really active. We've got loads of working groups happening, working on the ground this week. Things like adaptation, we've got Fridays for Future, Free Strike tomorrow, everyone join, it'll be lots of fun. Human rights, things like that. And then when we're sort of offline as well, we work on a lot of, not on ground, we work on a lot of projects. So one project is an African Youth Climate Hub. It's sort of an initiative working to connect all of Africa, all of the young people in Africa. So we have a few ambassadors for that who are with the initiative sort of from the start to the end. We do lots of other projects as well, papers, positions, things like that. We've done some work with WWF, WHO, other UN agencies, as well as external agencies and partners as well. Have I covered everything?
All of us share. This is a quote from Lady Bird Johnson that was said many years ago, but represents effectively our multicultural gathering today. But not only today, also a few months ago, in the biggest climate protest, where millions of young people occupied streets, united across time zones and cultures, demanding urgent actions toward the climate crisis. It was a call for everyone, governments, parties, NGOs, academia, and so on. How to answer to this urgency call? Through education, mentoring, raising awareness, giving space to those young people to express themselves, but also take decisions. I will talk about the University Côte d'Azur in Nice. That answer to this call by launching an accelerator for students to develop some innovative solutions about climate crisis, inclusion and diversity. During the month with my team, we try to answer how can we move from protest to concrete actions toward the climate crisis. So we developed a solution to help and also to support those frustrated students to become real broadcasters of the action around the climate change. An online platform of content sharing based on gamification and also arts. So every eco-friendly act by students will lead to self-esteem and bonification. This was launched in Nice, and we are willing to take this solution in an international level. Our beloved planet needs us and needs our effective actions. So even though we can think our actions are meaningless, but they can have a huge impact, we need to be a community and join all our efforts for this one thing that we all share, the planet. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to
So, yes, I'm trying to stress on how intergenerational processes for countries such as Bulgaria can help young people to evolve towards democratic way of society. The perspective is coming from the youth. Since then, we didn't have youth exchanges. Few of them started to come here. We have maybe 4 okay, more and more. Nowadays, we have, thanks to the Erasmus program and thanks to our integration to the EU, we have more than 800 foreign students coming to Bulgaria every semester. This acceleration, this integration of young people, I think is crucial for accelerating information, communication, and spreading knowledge top-down, important information to many young people. And also creating a totally new culture of people that live together, that understand that we have one planet and we have to care about it together. So, being a student, I really wanted to be part of such a program, but I was dedicated to the studies that I had, and this is why I started a PhD, and then I had some few moments that I managed to travel. Luckily, I ended up in Amiens, in France, and it was 2015. This is how I understood about COP, about emergency power situation, and all my thinking, even for my dissertation, which is about developing laws about personality, how we can review the full potential of people. I try to implement the idea that if we don't have the fundamental, the sure fundamental of the environment, we cannot think about developing the full capacity of individuals. Before I was thinking that peace is the most important value in the world. Since then, I understood that we cannot have peace if we put our environment on risk, because there are risks of conflicts and lack of resources, end of resources, etc. So, slowly being integrated into international dialogue communities, I started to care more and more about the topics and environmental topics. And I managed to travel abroad again to Vietnam, where I had some free time. I stayed for important office work that I had for years in Bulgaria, to travel the treaties between Bulgaria and NATO, Bulgaria and the EU. It is considered very profitable professional, global profession, but I didn't feel that I'm helping someone with my work. So I decided to write one because we started very simple practices that everyone can follow in his daily life in order to make his way of living more energy efficient, light waste efficient. I started to share the practices around here, and I collected more than 60 practices at the end. I was about to start to share the document, but then I understood that I need to explain why I'm doing this. So I put up the frame before all the practices, and this is how the biological innovation was created. I did a call for a change of our way of thinking, our way of understanding the nowadays life. Then I started to share the document everywhere I went, to conferences, workshops, through social media. Slowly, some people came to me and they said, like, you need to start an organization and work on specific projects. This is what I did. I did it locally in Bulgaria because I believe that everyone should take from the world and from the countries in which he's living to global society and global communities. This is how I ended up working on NPC's video. This is how I'm part of this program. I'm very happy to be here. I believe that our work is very important. I apologize for sharing such a personal story and such a historical part of Bulgarian history, but I want to express our hope that with the work that all the people here will be able to spread the knowledge and the currency of the situation and try to find and will find new ways of living. How can we do this? I really hope that COI can develop a regional network of health COIs around the globe, which can distribute information to the whole business of social groups, both geographically and in terms of race awareness. We should have the responsibility to inform everyone about the current situation, to reach everyone and involve everyone. Such processes of communication, coordination, and making processes of negotiations more efficient, I think can be also useful for the process of ours.